and I actually watch them move through time and interact with them, that shows me that part of the conversation is the bodies, and part of the conversation feels like the force animating these bodies also is a part of the conversation, right? It's like watching, really registering the fact of human minds. There is a puppeteer in the dome piece pulling all the strings in the human being. It may be invisible, but you can get a sense of it in the interaction. You can't really get a sense of it in still frames, although you can get a sense of a sense, perhaps. For example, recently on Ramani's channel, this last year anyway, she came out with an episode on her talk show thing on YouTube where she said that oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Yes, I know what I'm doing. I just had to make a call there on making another one of those fundamental turns, right? But there was a study done where people's facial features were separated apart in pictures, and people were allowed to assess in one phase the entire face of many of these people, and then in another phase, I think different people analyzed the same photos as the first phase, but they were only one part of the face was visible. So yeah, these are still frames. These are still frames that we're looking at, and the task of all these people was to identify a trait. I'm just going to call it a pathological personality style trait. And they were pretty damn accurate when it came to full faces. Well, here's what it was. It wasn't even the accuracy across the board. It was the similarity of people knowing this trait just by looking at a still frame of a human being. Whether it was their whole face or like 80% as effectively if it was just their eyebrows. You can tell a trait. You can tell something of the essence of that person's wake through life by their fucking eyebrows held in a photo. Piece of plastic and paper. You can tell pretty often. Particularly in females, apparently. And that speaks to something. Our appearances are also alive, right? I'm not saying that there's like this division outright. I'm saying there's a poetry to it. People with different personality styles, different lives behind them, of course, are going to dress differently and highlight their bodies differently, and piercings will be different, and tattoos will be different, and they walk around all the time with these billboards shouting, "This is who I am," or was when I made this adjustment. Bought this suit. Anyway, it really made me feel something. Really got in there. I'm very grateful to that. Really grateful to that. I like being moved. What this kind of conversation does, whether I have 5 minutes of it or take y'all on a run where we have a conversation many hours about it, is that we can find these opportunities and set our lives and our days and our practices and our words and our social circles and everything. We can set everything up so that it becomes easier less resistance inducing, more fluid, more flowing, to pan back from the narratives of mundanity, because it is overrepresented in our world right now. I think conscious self experiences, conscious self interactions, with some emotional stuff too, but conscious self stuff, assessing, critiquing, task orienting, wakeful self stuff is overrepresented in the daily experience of the average human being in the world today, I want to say. I don't know if that's true. It's just a hunch. And the hunch might just be a projection, because that's me. Whatever my natural bend is, whichever foot I put first primarily, I can say enculturation has, I mean, it's useful to be in that state plenty of the time. It is, it really is. But I think we've gone beyond that threshold. And I've done it too. Ignored my body, saying simple things in a language that I once understood without having to listen, that I was then trained and taught not to listen. In fact, to ignore, and in fact to attack the times when I do listen, particularly if what comes across is a signal that I don't like or I don't think is acceptable. None of that starts on its own. It always starts with someone telling you that that thing is unacceptable. It's like timeouts with kids. Nope. I know you're 3, but you acted out too much. I can't deal with the 5 hours of crying you just did because I'm going through a divorce and I don't know how to deal with feelings. Nothing is talked about, so it has to find a vent, and you're the vent because you're the most susceptible in the network of this failing marriage. It's about to become a bunch of singular isolated satellites. And you, my friend, my 3-year-old child friend, are now about to learn, as you thrash around on the floor and freak out, that you're going to have to now agree with me. And I'll physically put you back in that timeout space as often and as many times as possible for you to understand that if you act like this too much for too long, you don't get to be around. And since the threshold of time in this situation is important, you only have a few memories of anything, if that. You only know a tiny bit of things, if that. Now, a part of your fundamental experience that your primary caregivers, your sources for life, you're one step away from the breast at this point. So your almost primary sources of remaining a person in the world and avoiding pain and having any kind of good feeling is something that is completely conditional. I will show you, because you have superseded the conditions of my love, which is expressed through presence. Not only do you not get to be around, just like you weren't around last night when we had a fight, and we thought it would be better to isolate you without thinking about how you could hear it through the floorboards, and the banging, and the screaming. Now that's going to be etched into your psyche. But now you get to deal with all that alone. I will not have you in my presence. Throwing, tantruming child. Pain signal streaming, expressing child. We're not going to process this together. You're going to process it alone in your tiny 3-year-old body until you stop quaking and sobbing. Until you burn yourself out of energy. And there's a void where there could have been nourishing, co-managed safety and energy. I just became very harsh, didn't I? Things got real dark. I'm saying that something like this is everybody's experience. Not everybody's, but a lot of us. Have I talked about this on the podcast? God, I wonder. Maybe if I can find the link, I'll put it up in the description. There was one YouTube thing that I was referred to by my mentor a while back. It was pretty fucking cool. And yeah, children are ceaselessly demanding. I get it. The world is not set up well for the needy right now. For the endlessly needy, especially, particularly for the endlessly across years needy, such as the infants of the world. But in this YouTube episode of something, I don't know what it was, maybe I can find it. The display that came up when I hit the link was a video of a crying child, like a toddler, barely walking, but walking. See, I'm so disassociated. I don't even know where those thresholds are. Infant, toddler. But the infant the toddler is wandering around in the middle of a tantrum. So, there's waves of it, right? There's moments of calming down, then the kid works himself up again. And it's like, God, why? And the tears and the sounds. I'm very sensitive to those sounds. I have a hard time with them. I think a lot of us do, and I think that's, only natural, right? We're wired to respond to this signal. Well, the kid is freaking out, and his dad's there. Now, if the kid were alone, that'd be one thing. They'd probably eventually stop. But a conversation wanted to happen. Something wanted to get worked out. The kid needed something, wasn't sure he was going to get it. Call that what you will. You can have that under any number of visages. The present wasn't what I wanted this Christmas. Wah. Oh, I want more cake. Wah, I can't get it. Oh, where's this person or that friend? Oh, I don't want to brush my teeth. And do you still love me if I can't control the hatred I have for needing to do that in front of you? Or we need to have that conversation. Don't just put me in the bathroom with the toothbrush alone. And lock the door. Remember the tree lines? Yeah, I do. Well, the dad's just there. And you have some options when your kid is tantruming, right? I'm not a parent, so laugh at me. Go for it. I'm just telling you what I saw. And I can tell you my own experience as well. I've seen helicopter parents who will not allow their child to experience any pain. So the kid never really leaves the bosom or the den. So there has to be a dichotomy here. There has to be like a tension. A conversation, I guess, is the better. We were talking about having a conversation. Anyway, the kid and the dad are having a conversation. The kid's freaking out. And the dad, I give him credit. I'm also aware this is a YouTube video. I don't know if that kid is treated the same way after the video ends, or the 15th hour straight of tantrum, depending on the issue being resolved or conversed, let's say. Because yeah, independence does have to be established slowly. Fucking Star Wars lightsaber sounds. Wonder how much of that you caught. That'll be fun on the playback, I wonder. Such a weird, haunting... Anyway. Keep running. Here, I'll point you with the golfers. You can see the golfers. Look at them go. On this side, it's boring. I don't want to show you this side. Just the tracks and the fence. Look how the top of the fence was clipped so that it's basically barbed wire on top. Whew, that's nefarious. Now, the dad positions himself in the center of the room and picks a direction. And he moves a bit and shifts a bit. But mostly what he does is he operates as a solid foundation, a rock. And the kid, such a cool... You couldn't have choreographed this way. It was just too perfect. I'll bet you could see this in animals. Mammals, anyway. But the kid will alternately flip out on his own and then flip out right in front of his dad. He'll go where he knows the cone of his dad's vision is, and he'll do that visually, and the dad will be there. He might do a little bit of a reach and see if the kid wants to connect. Sometimes that happens, and they hug, and the kid's not quite done, so he has to stomp around and go away for a second, come back. The second or third time this happened, and notice the dad's just still chilling. He's like, I'm here to do my part of this workout. But the kid's got to stamp it out sometimes. So the kid stamps it out, goes back to dad, hugs it out, or doesn't hug it out. The kid's playing with all this material. This conversation is like, oh man, if I come to you, you're there, okay. If I don't come to you and I leave, then I'm somewhere else, and you won't chase me. So it's up to me to put myself where I want to be to have this conversation. It's really interesting stuff. And the kid, like the third or fourth time, the kid comes back and he's hammering on the floor a little bit, and dad's just calm. He's cool. He gets it. He's there. He's not rushing to be like, oh, poor baby. In a different context, that might be the right way of doing it. But in this context, it's up to the kid. What do you do with that power? You play with it. You put yourself in every emotional state. It doesn't look like play. It looks terrifying to a non-parent like myself. But like the third or fourth time, the kid comes back and he's drumming on the floor. And he starts climbing on his dad. Yeah, like literally the mountain. And dad makes sure he doesn't hurt himself. But other than that, and if the kid wants to hold, he holds. If the kid doesn't want to hold, the kid's hanging on his arm for a second. It was fantastic. I was like, he's just like, it's almost like he's begging. Dad, melt down and freak out. I need to see the end of your patience. I'm looking for the end of your patience. I need to connect, but I don't want to connect, and I'm grumpy. I want you to do all the work for me. I don't want to feel this anymore. But I also am building a personality, so this has to happen. An identity that can go forward and away from dad. He'll react, but he won't react harshly beyond what's necessary. He'll fucking whip me out of a fire, lickety split, if I jump into a fucking fire, but other than that, so dad doesn't let the kid drop. But he also doesn't do anything undue. He doesn't when the kid scrambles to get away again, dad lets him. It's like the kid gives himself the timeout that he wants. Then he comes back. And eventually, this is a hot minute, guys. This is like a 15-minute video. And there's a couple of time chops. So I assume that this goes on for a lot longer. Just straight. And Dad's just chilling at the end of it as well. And the kid's just chilling too. Eventually they're good. What happens when you did that? Well, I've got my experience, you've got yours. Sometimes things went better, sometimes things didn't go that well. It was all what it was. I can say this. Recently I've been playing, as we do, with the notion of the saying. Because it took me a long time to get to the comfort of they did their best, you know? Like I knew it, but it was hollow feeling. But I kept repeating it. Kept thinking about all the times that things could have been much worse and weren't. Every time that I remember, it's not many, but I know that it happened way more often than I'm giving it credit, that they caught themselves and didn't escalate the emotional turbulence of several of these situations. How the hell do I cross this? Oh, yeah. That's right. Jump the rocks, jump the rocks, jump the rocks. That's Jasper down there. Whew. Not easy. Time check. 54 minutes. We're probably 15 minutes away from home. I could extend the run by going either way. I don't feel a particular need. I got the signal. Although I do love the road off to the left. I really do. What do you think? It's not a huge detour. Not really. Yeah, I think we all know by now. I just can't get a goddamn enough of my own voice, can I? And my own tired running feet in these pointy fucking rocks. And jumping. Recently we hailed the return of my jumping abilities. Long lost. 3 years feels like a long time not to have security that when you jump a fair distance, your perineal floor won't erupt in pain and spasm out and freak out at you. All it took was some exercises. Who knew? Who knew? Well, now I know. And now you know. Your healing journey is going to be different than mine. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. We're going to draw an analogy. I caution you. The imagery is profound. It's the same thing, though. I don't know if I can tie this in a way that makes sense, but we're going to go for it. We're going to go above and beyond, and if I fuck up, that's okay. It's the podcast. That ghoul is an illusion. So the kid was okay at the end of the episode, right? And maybe you and I got that same treatment. Sometimes maybe you and I got the timeout sometimes, whatever. No one's perfect. My language recently transformed from they did their best to they did better than their best. And I feel it. So that is a sign of some healing. To feel that and for it not to be hollow. It's half hollow. My cynicism has moved in very deep over the course of my second half of life. But it's a conversation. And in that conversation, I am me in the center of the room, and I'm also me acting out and testing the boundaries, seeing if I can poke and prod and make myself volatile. See if I can really feel it. Whatever happens in that conversation is real, raw material, right? But I gotta be patient And it has to come and it has to go, and it's not going to be guided by conscious self. It'll be informed by conscious self. That's a part of the conversation. But my emotional body is just like the wandering child. We're relearning. It has to come to the center and away from the center. Test it, jungle gym it. Disassociate, see what that's like. Reassociate, and find the uplink and the warmth in the uplink to be one of our more powerful natural advantages in this world as human beings, as mammals, this togetherness. It really is a form of a hive mind, isn't it? And touch and words and eye contact and that wake across time, the patterns built and bundled up so that singular experiences. You know, what do you think happens to that kid by the fifth time? By the fifth time the dad's been around, and what, oh God, even better, what if it's 5 times in a row? 5 meltdowns in a row across 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 hours. Imagine that conversation happening that way, and no freakouts. That kid is developing a core of steel. That's going to become a mighty fine blade. Mighty fine if that keeps going. So, it's not like I'm any further behind than the kid. He's right there. So I've had that conversation enough times with myself to be like, okay, yeah, not only did they do their best, my caretakers did beyond their best. They grew to heights they never would have achieved. In some cases, they stayed there. In some cases, they kept growing. In other cases, they're just people, man. They're just people. It's okay. Now it's my opportunity. Here's one that we're working on right now. It's not only my opportunity, but it's something that I get to do. To go back through the blueprints, to go back to the room, the drawing board, and be that anchor through these things. I did that yesterday. 2 orders went haywire on me yesterday. One guy grifted me on an alcohol deal at a hotel. Big surly dude. I got all the wrong vibes, and I knew the way that it was going before I picked up the phone and called support, which I did before beginning the next order, which was at a fast food restaurant, which was not ready, even though I spent the extra 7 or 8 minutes online getting support to learn what to do with the grift order. The lady asked me when I finally got service after finding all the doors locked and you can only use the drive-thru, but everybody's in the drive-thru. Texting the guy, sorry this is going to be so late, hearing nothing back. Just showing up, right? Just showing up and being patient. The girl at the window hands me the food, doesn't have the soda that he wants. He won't get back to me about the soda. People are starting to get in line behind me. She's like, how much does your job pay? I was like, fuck. You're looking at me in my situation. You're watching me live out the wake of this moment of life. I said, it's okay. I said, it's comparable to what I was making in a safe job. But it suits my temperament. She's like, oh, okay. Through all that, I watched it. I watched the kid being like, what the fuck? But I didn't scream, what the fuck? Sometimes I smiled it off. Sometimes I breathed. In that hour, it took like an hour for those 2 things to happen. And it was a slow day anyway. And it's nearing the end of the month. So the kid was just blabbing. Oh my God, this and that. You really got this, Dad? And I'm like, yep, I'll show you. Try me. The kid's like, fuck that guy. I'm getting grifted. Fuck support. They're usually too slow. Weren't this time. They're usually too slow. And I had that other order. And I spent all that time in that tension. Dad. And I'm like, oh, I know. It's crazy, right? What a world. Hey, we made it though, didn't we? I'm so proud. Look at us. Who's better than us? We got this. I did another order after that, I think. And it was a calm, serene order. And I got tipped pretty freaking well the later part of that day, now that I think about it. But we had to have the conversation. Anyway, I was going to draw an analogy, because the image of the kid going away from dad and going toward dad, melting down, calming down, revving back up, lashing out. Dad is doing all of this stuff, keeping him safe and also teaching him not to hit by not hitting him himself when he is struck, but also keeping, how much jujitsu does it take to sufficiently restrain a tiny child, not suffer damage and not allow them to hurt themselves on you? It doesn't take much, but it does take patience. And how long had that kid been melting down at that point before dad decided that he was going to keep weathering it and keep being a good fucking dad? That was awesome. I can't even tell you, but it does beget in my imagination a bridge to another memory that I have. A beautiful memory, watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a kid's cartoon. If you have like an 8-year-old or something, and give or take, they might not be too traumatized by the cartoon, and they might find the bright colors and funny jokes to be fun. I was way older when I found Avatar, but it's a good cartoon. I like it. In the end of the first season, there's this war going on, and the fire guys and the water guys are in conflict. But the Avatar, the main character of the show, he's the man of balance. He's the guy who kind of sees all the different parts of the world. And it's his job to indulge himself in the different ways and modalities of being in the world. Literally. Everybody has their own little magic in that show, depending on where you're. Eventually, it gets worked out to be something of a genealogical thing, but it's roughly correlated to what corner of the world you're from. Dictates your special brand of magic. Some people can just move rocks with their minds. Some people can do tidal waves and make streams happen and stuff. Other folks can burn shit down by yelling and throwing their fists around. There's just a lot going on. Well, the Avatar is in the water part of the world, one of them, and the fire part of the world people are assaulting that part of the world, trying to take it over. One of the generals of the Fire Nation ends up knocking out and screwing with the geocosmic balance of the world, because in this world's geocosmology,